Hi everyone, I am back again. Welcome back to Sound of History. Welcome to the first episode of 2026. So we have a brand new year ahead of us, and I want to begin this first episode of this clean slate of a year with something positive and uplifting. Even though the world is burning and everything is a complete shit show, my message to you, my dear listener, is this. You might not be able to save the world. You might not even be able to save your own country. At least not for the moment being. So my message to you is this. Focus on the people in your life that you care about, and don't be too hard on yourself, and don't be too hard on others. Practice gratitude. Protect your energy. Do things that make you feel good and stop doing things that hurt you. Strive to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be and set an example for others. You are enough, you are loved, and you are not alone. We are all feeling lost in one way or another, and we are all trying to find ourselves. Life is the greatest gift that we have all been given, and we get to live to experience yet another year on this planet. And no matter how crazy or dark it gets, life is still the greatest trip. Disclaimer: the setup and circumstances for which I am forced to record this episode are not optimal, and the sound quality might not be the best, and I might sound a bit weird. So I want to start off this brand new year with a bang, and I have decided that this episode is going to be all about the history of country music. Doesn't that pique your interest? I mean, who doesn't love country music? Or at least a few songs, am I right? And how much do we actually know about the history of country music? After looking into it and doing some research, I can tell you that it definitely wasn't born in the 1930s. That is simply when country music began to reach the mainstream and when country performers were finally starting to be recorded in bigger numbers around the end of the 1920s and early 1930s. But of course, country music is much older than that, and it's maybe older than what we know. And long before the genre even had a name, a few country-sounding songs were already being recorded way before the mainstream narrative claims that country music began. And how do I know this? Well, because I found some surprising early recordings to prove it. And it's cool to think about how country music has remained remarkably unchanged through history, and even recordings that are over a century old, the heart of the music is instantly recognizable, and beneath the crackle and the noise, the emotion is still there, and time may have worn down the sound quality but not the feeling, and it still goes straight to the heart. The reason why I chose to make a podcast about really old music is partly because I like when listening to music is a bit of a challenge, when you have to look for the good parts and when you have to dig through forgotten albums and songs to find some cool stuff. And you have to go searching for it, and music isn't just presented to you through an algorithm, and it isn't just fed to you. There is beauty hidden in the noise, and I'm sure there is a lot of beauty that we have forgotten in history. And I don't mind the crackling and bad sound quality. I personally find it charming. And I guess anyone who does probably isn't listening to old recordings from 100 years ago. But back to country music. Country music is made up of different components or parts or influences that resulted in its very unique sound. Country music was born from a mix of British and Irish folk ballads, African American blues or spirituals, Appalachian fiddle traditions, religious hymns, and yodeling. Have you ever wondered why they yodel in old country songs?
From my cot at the close of the day, Mr. Rabbit into keys of June. Neath the jessamine shade I espied a fair maid, and she plaintively sighed to the moon. Roll on, silver moon, light to the traveler. On the mountain my lover was brave, so noble and manly and clever, so kind and sincere, and he loved me so dear. Oh, my Edwin, his equal was never. Roll on, silver moon, light the traveler. The moon, and I never more with my true love will I stray by the sweet silver moonlight.
So, what did you think about that recording? Could you hear a faint resemblance of country music, at least in the way of singing? The first person to popularize yodeling was George P. Watson, who we just heard, singing a song titled Roll on Silver Moon, recorded in 1906. And he is the earliest recording star to specialize in songs with yodeling. And he made Berliner discs and Edison cylinders as early as 1897 and Columbia cylinders as early as 1898. And after George P. Watson introduced yodeling to audiences, it stuck around, and the musicians that followed kept on yodeling as country evolved and progressed, and yodeling has become synonymous with country music. And as you can probably guess, yodeling was brought to America by Germanic immigrants, and then vaudeville performers spread it into popular entertainment.
Show me the lady that never would roam away from her fireside night, and never would go roaming after the boys, but would sit by her fireside so bright. My wife is one of the different kind. All kinds calls me for to eat. She's all from her home. She leaves me alone to rock all our babies to sleep. Oh, Emily, oh, 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 Just the other night, while out for a walk, I happened to stroll down the street, and to my surprise, I saw with my eyes my wife with a man of 60. He says it's no harm, don't raise no alarm. Don't make any fuss on the street. She tickled my chin. She told me go in to rock our babies to sleep. Oh, Emily, holy, 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 Emily, holy, holy, you rock our babies to sleep. Oh, Emily, holy, 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 Emily, holy, holy.
George Riley Puckett is probably most likely the first country musician to yodel on a record. And here you could hear him singing and yodeling Rock All Our Babies to Sleep. And this song was recorded in 1924. Let's continue on and listen to a spiritual that has been covered many times by different country musicians.
Get on board, little children, get on board. Get on board. There's room for many more. Get on board. Get on board. the links and all have steam and brake, and the train in ever in there. Oh, get on board. Get on board. Get on board. There's room for many a more. Oh, get on board. Get on board. Get on board. There's room for many a more. The fair is cheap and all can go. The rich and poor are there. No second class aboard this train. No difference in the fare. Oh, get on board. Get on board. Get on board. There's room for many a more.
That was the Gospel Train, which is a traditional African American spiritual, and it was first published in 1872 as one of the songs of the Fisk Jubilee Singers. And if you want to find out more about the Fisk Jubilee Singers, you can listen to episode number 2 of this podcast, I Couldn't Hear Nobody Pray. And here the song was performed by Homer Roadheaver and the Wise Man Sextet, and it was recorded in 1923. If you enjoy listening to these old recordings and learning about these forgotten artists in history, and you want to show your support for this podcast, you can do so by liking, commenting, rating, come on, give this podcast 5 stars, and subscribing or following this podcast. You can, of course, also recommend it to a friend or family member or coworker. There is also another way of supporting this podcast and to help it keep on going and help me keep it ad-free. If you want to do that, you can make a one-time donation on my Ko-Fi or Ko-fi page. It's a one-time payment, it's not a subscription. The address for my Ko-fi page is ko-fi.com/soundofhistory, one word. Again, ko-fi.com/soundofhistory, one word. So there you can make a one-time donation of $5. Thank you for supporting this podcast, and now back to the episode. So, what do we today in 2026 consider to be the first ever country music recording? Well, as I mentioned in episode number 2 of this podcast, titled I Couldn't Hear Nobody Pray, please go back and listen to that episode if you want to hear some absolutely beautiful music. As I mentioned in that episode, back in 2024, Archeophone Records announced that they had discovered an old cylinder recording of a song titled Thompson's Old Grey Mule, performed by a black musician named Louis Vanier. Thompson's Old Grey Mule then continued to be performed and recorded by different so-called hillbilly musicians, and other later versions of the song exists. So with this discovery of Louis Vanier and his cylinder recording, we can conclude that country music is even older than what we previously thought, and it goes back to at least 1891 when his song was recorded. And this also means that country music wasn't played only by white musicians. And before the discovery of this cylinder recording in 2024, there was also a fiddle musician named Don Richardson. He doesn't go as far back as Louis Vanier, but he seems to have been completely overlooked in country music history, and I find it strange that many documentaries about country music many times begin the timeline from the 1920s, which really doesn't paint an accurate picture of how country music actually began. And it completely overlooks the influence of George P. Watson's yodeling, Louis Vanier, which I guess there was no way of knowing about since his recording was just discovered. But it's especially strange that the contribution of Don Richardson and his fiddle music that was recorded almost a decade earlier, not in the 1920s. He began recording in 1914, and he seems to have been almost completely forgotten in country music history. That was Don Richardson playing Arkansas Traveler, recorded in 1916. All right, let's talk about the instruments that make up the foundation of country music, the fiddle and the banjo. The fiddle is basically just another name for the violin, and the fiddle was born from European violins that were carried by immigrants from Ireland, Scotland, and England. And then, in the hands of farmers, sailors, and travelers, its sound became louder, faster, and made for movement. The fiddle was playing music for weddings, taverns, and long nights on wooden floors. And as the fiddle spread through the American South, it absorbed new rhythms and ideas, especially from African American musicians, shaping reels, jigs, and breakdowns that created the music for community dances. And the fiddle, together with the banjo, became the backbone of old-time music. And by the early 1900s, the fiddle was right at the heart of the first country recordings, carrying melodies passed down for generations.
Come all of you young people and listen while I tell the fate of Floyd Collins, a lad we all knew well. His face was fair and handsome, his heart was true and brave. His body now lies sleeping in a lonely sandstone cave. How sad this story, it filled our eyes with tears. Its memory too will linger for many a year. A broken-hearted father who tried his boy to save will now weep tears of sorrow at the door of Floyd's cave. Oh, mother, don't you worry, dear father, don't be sad. I'll tell you all my trouble in an awful dream I had. I dreamed that I was prisoner, my life could not be saved. I cried, oh, must I perish just in this silent cave. The rescue party gathered, the labored night and day to move the mighty barrow that stood within the way. To rescue Floyd Collins, it was their battle cry. We'll never know, we'll never let Floyd Collins die. But on that fatal morning, the sun rose in the sky. The workers still were busy, we'll save him by and by. But oh, how sad the ending, his life they could not save. His body then was sleeping in a lonely sandstone cave. Young people, oh, take warning, this is for you and I. We may not be like Collins, but you and I must die. May not be in a sand cave in which we find our tomb, but at the mighty judgment we too must meet our doom.
That was Fiddlin' John Carson singing the death of, the death of Floyd Collins, recorded in 1925. So, of course, I had to look up Floyd Collins to find out a bit more about this guy, and oh my, I didn't expect to find this. During the early 1900s, there was something known as the Kentucky Cave Wars, which was basically spelunkers and landowners that were competing against each other, and they were trying to make money off by showing caves to tourists who were paying to see these caves. And spelunking, or potholing, is the recreational pastime of exploring wild cave systems. And the challenges involved in spelunking can vary according to the cave system that is being explored. So, in addition to the total absence of light beyond the entrance to the cave, moving through vertical passages, squeezes, and water hazards can be difficult. Yeah, I am panicking just reading this text. So, Floyd Collins was an American cave explorer, and he became trapped and died in what became Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. So, while he was working to enlarge the small passage in Sand Cave, Floyd Collins became trapped in a narrow crawlway 55 feet or 17 meters below ground. And the rescue operation to save him became a national media sensation and one of the first major news stories to be reported using the new technology of broadcast radio. After 4 days, during which rescuers were able to bring water and food to Floyd Collins, a rock collapse in the cave closed the entrance passageway, stranding him inside, except for voice contact, for another 10 days. Floyd Collins died of thirst and hunger, compounded by exposure through hypothermia, after being isolated for a total of 14 days, 3 days before a rescue shaft reached his position. And Floyd Collins' body was recovered 2 months later. So back to Fiddlin' John Carson. It should probably be said that we have entered into a bit of a problematic territory. And I should probably tell you that he was a Ku Klux Klan member, or at least he attended their rallies frequently. And I was contemplating if I should include him in this episode or not. But since I don't believe in censorship, and I want to tell history like it is, and the thing is that he is considered to be a key figure in early country music, so that is just how it is. But enough about that. Let's continue onward and listen to some banjo music, shall we?
and the beer. Now let's the baby to the ball. Everybody then, hello, baby. Here is your daddy. I can daddy go. It's like 6 minutes from the whole big city and it's how it goes. It's like 6 minutes from the whole city and it's how it goes.
One of the earliest banjo performances from 1895, Black Pickaninny by Charles Adam Alvarez. His stage name was Charles Adam Asbury, and he is one of the first American banjo players to be recorded. And his work was largely in the minstrel tradition, so with slightly racist undertones, basically. And his surviving recordings are the earliest examples of the stroke style of banjo. The banjo didn't come from the mountains of America, it came from the other side of the ocean. And the banjo's earliest ancestors came from West Africa, where enslaved musicians built instruments from gourds, animal skin, and strings, creating its very unique, bright, rhythmic sound that carried these enslaved people's stories, their dances, and their memories. And by the 1700s, versions of these banjos were already being played in America, long before country music had a name. And then in the 1800s, the banjo spread through minstrel shows and rural folk music, moving it away from black communities and into wider American culture. So minstrel shows were one of the most popular forms of American entertainment in the 1800s. Minstrel shows were stage performances that combined music, comedy, dance, and storytelling, usually performed by white entertainers in blackface, and they were making fun of black people through exaggerated stereotypes. And these shows helped spread songs and instruments like the banjo to wider audiences, shaping early American popular music. But the minstrel shows did so by caricaturing and mocking black culture, which reinforced racist ideas that lasted long after the shows themselves had gone away. And minstrel shows left a deep mark on American entertainment. They were musically influential, but culturally damaging, and impossible to separate from the history of race in the United States. So the banjo paired with the fiddle became the heartbeat of old-time folk music and the sound of dances, hangouts on the front porch, and traveling songs. So when the first hillbilly, as they were called, recordings appeared in the early 1900s, the banjo was right there, helping shape early country music. So from African roots to Appalachian strings, the banjo has a complicated past, but its unique sound is unmistakable, restless, rhythmic, and impossible to ignore.
Keep my skin is good and breezy all the time. Honey, if you say so, I'll never work no more. I'll lay around no shanty all the time. I'll lay around no shanty all the time. Chickens in my sack, bloodhounds on my track. I'm pulling for my shanty home. walking down the street and I showed a ham of meat. Got my skillet good and greasy all the time. Got my skillet good and greasy all the time. I was one to the hills, find a bomb, jug of brandy, grind to give it all to Mandy. Keep us good and drunk and woozy all the time. Keep us good and drunk and woozy all the time. There's a nigger on the log, a finger on the trigger, and eye on the hope. Gun eats when flip, and the bullet eats when slip. But on the hog will all of his grip. Got my skillet good and greasy all the time. Got my skillet good and greasy all the time. Big Billy Goat Mama, she washed most every day. Hung her clothes out on the line, that darn old Goldie come that way. He pulled down the red flannel shirt, he did sort of hate them buttons cracked. But I'll get even with the son of a gun, gonna tie him across the railroad track. Tied him across the railroad track, and the train was coming at a powerful rate. He built up that old red shirt and then flagged down that darned old freight. Went through the depot and I bought me a ticket. Walked right in, said I sat down. Stuck my ticket in the brim of my hat and the doggone wind blowed it out on the ground. Conductor come around, said, give me a ticket. I had to pay again a bill left on the track. But I'll get even with the son of a gun. I got a round trip ticket and ain't coming back. Acted an old fool married me a widow. The widow had a daughter by the name of Maud. Father being a widower married her daughter, and now my daddy is my own son-in-law. Had a little roll, laid it on the board, up with sugar and the gold, sugar and the gold. You want to get it out, or the way to get sugar out, or to go to buy. A little noise and I see the little fight. The police are watching and they're running all around, but a load of white lightning done come to town. Had a little hen, had a wooden leg, a bit darn hen that ever laid an egg. Silly boy eggs in a hen around the barn, and another little drink wouldn't do me any harm. Black snake grabbed me by my heels, said I'd turn around and to do my best, and I run my head in a hornet's nest. Went right out upon the steeples, I looked right down on the colored people. Some were black and some were blacker, and some were the color of a Jew with a bagger.
Keep My Skillet Good and Greasy and Papa's Billy Goat, performed by Uncle Dave Mason. His real name was David Harrison Mason, but the world came to know him by his stage name. And somewhere around here, when these songs were recorded around 1924-1925, according to the mainstream narrative, this is when country music officially began. And Uncle Dave Mason's music is considered to be the ultimate bridge between old American folk and vaudeville music from the 1800s, connecting to the new world of phonograph records and radio in the early 1900s. And he became the first star of the Grand Ole Opry in the second half of the 1920s. And in the late 1920s, when the Grand Ole Opry wasn't as huge yet as it would later become, it was a radio barn dance that broadcasted local folk music and made it into a shared national sound across America. And in the process, it helped give country music its name, and the show created all the big country stars that would follow, and it gave country music its soul. Sugar in the Gourd by Fiddlin' Powers and Family. Fiddlin' Powers and Family was an Appalachian string band and are also considered to be pioneers in early country music. And they were the first family ensemble playing old-time music to make a commercial record in 1924. And the band consisted of a father, Cowan Powers, who played the fiddle, and his wife, Matilda, who played the banjo. So I guess it was almost inevitable that their 4 children would also take up a range of different instruments. Charlie played the banjo, Orpha the mandolin, Carrie played guitar, and Ada played the ukulele. And after Matilda died in 1916, Cowan Powers made music his full-time job, and he took his children on the road with him as members of the Family String Band. A very popular old religious hymn that was originally written in the mid-1800s, I believe, in the suite By and By. And this hymn has been covered countless times by different country musicians. Here it was performed by the Chautauqua Preacher Quartet, and it was recorded in 1918. And now we have reached the end of this episode, and I am saying goodbye, and until next time.